Hi guys and welcome to episode 1 of the AM Film Podcast. I'm Brad Evans and with me we have the editor of theangrymicrowave.com, Callum Moorin.
Hello everybody, how are you today, Bradley?
I'm very well. So just so everyone knows, like I said, this is episode 1, so any kinks that we need to iron out, just bear with us. And let us know how we can improve as we go along. Because, none of us are perfect, except for Callum.
Is that a compliment? I kind of
I don't know, you're the one who's going to pay me one day, so... Okay, so the way this works is we've got a few sections that we're going to break down. The first one that we talk about is what's in cinemas at the moment, or what's being released this week. So there's only one place to talk. There's only one place to start, which is Spectre, the new James Bond. Now, we are going to have a spoiler-filled podcast for you in a couple of days, I believe. We're going to put that up. So for now, we're going to stick to a spoiler-free review. So, Callum, your first impressions?
I really liked it. It's not as good as Skyfall, but it's still a brilliant film. For me, basically, Skyfall had ups and downs, rather than this was basically like a straight, great film, for me. What about you?
No, so I've seen it more recently than yourself. You saw it last night. I saw it about 5 hours ago. And I can sense that you liked it a lot more than I did. The way that I can pull it is, for the first hour, I was thinking to myself, oh God, we've got another Quantum of Solace here. Right, it was, I know, it had no pace to it at all for me. There were some great action sequences, there were some great moments, but there was just I didn't feel anything that was at stake, which is weird, because the last couple of films have made this Bond series a personal thing, And I love that take on it. It's not saving the world, it's almost saving his world, which adds more to the stakes, and I love that. But I didn't feel that in the first hour. I just felt like it was a bit flat. I felt there were dips. But the last hour, what I will say is the greatest final act that we've had in the last 4 Bond films.
Did you not find that the pacing of all the Bond films have kind of been up, then chilled for like half an hour, then up again?
For most of them, I felt like it was a bit of a mountain range, right? So it was up, down, halfway. Whereas this one, I felt like it was a U shape, okay. Right? So the opening sequence is impeccable, right? No spoilers, but the opening sequence is impeccable. It's incredible.
Continuous shot, Birdman
style.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was just phenomenal. I love that. And then it just dips until the final hour or the final 45 minutes. But what I will say is, so pros and cons without spoilers, obviously. What was the biggest plus for you? Like, what was the biggest? What made you like this so much as Skyfall?
I kind of like. It's no spoilers, but basically the base and the main villain in this, I thought that was very well played out. I kind of wish there was more development of it, because it only really comes in during its final third of the film,
which is the part that I enjoyed most. So
exactly. And Dave Bautista's character, it kind of seems one villain, second villain. It's a very by the books Bond film. Mm-hmm. So much so you go, oh, so basically the car chase has happened, the sex scene has happened, and now we need the big fight. It did seem very like checklist Bond, and I think that's why it's good, but it's not great, because it's a very safe Bond.
It is, which, just going off that for me, they wasted Dave Bautista, because I loved his character. And it was very much like they didn't know what to do in the second act. So they brought in the classic Bond henchman, as it were, which is what he is. And he was great. And then we moved on to the final act, where it was almost separate from the rest of the film. And I love what happens in the final 45 minutes, the final hour. But I felt like there was nothing at stake leading up to that, like I said. But it was a by the numbers. I mean, it wasn't a bad film by any means. But if I was to grade it, I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5.
One of the things that I really loved about it was more of an ensemble film than like the other Bond films. Like Q and Moneypenny all played their parts, and it felt like they were part of the story rather than being put on top of the story, which the last film seemed very much like. I really like that, because it shows Bond's weaknesses as such, and kind of being forced to come as a team player, because by far Bond relies on people the most in this film.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just kind of said it being an ensemble piece. That's what I loved about the last, since Casino Royale, really, it's everything's kind of been personal. Like the stakes have been, like I said, personal to him, which is what I've loved about this take on Bond and Daniel Craig's Bond. And I think what added to it in this film was, like you said, Q and M and Moneypenny. They're all involved to the extent where I don't think we've really seen that in this series so far, except for obviously in Skyfall, because M was pretty involved in Skyfall.
One of the interesting things about that is being a more ensemble piece. Do you reckon they're arranging it for Daniel Craig to step down and maybe introduce a new Bond and kind of hope for those three main characters to carry on the Bond theme through while replacing the actor? Or do you reckon they'll start from fresh if there is going to be a new Bond?
Do you mean without Daniel Craig in it at all and no Bond?
Yeah, well, not like that, but kind of like replacing Bond as a new 007, but keeping the world around them the same.
Oh, they've got to. Because like I was saying to somebody else earlier who hasn't seen the film, it's very difficult to talk about a film that people haven't seen.
Yeah.
But what they've done so well in the past is that they've kept like the Q and M for decades. They were the same actors. And I think that kind of grounds it. That makes you feel like you're in the same universe, but when they mix up the main character, the main actor, sorry, I think that's what makes it fresh. So I think they've got the foundations here to have an ensemble for decades to come. But yeah, I think they'll keep that cast. I think they need to.
Yeah, definitely. I also feel it's been the strongest like surrounding cast.
Yeah.
Like out of all the Bond films, I would say, which is quite a bold statement.
Yeah, but the best thing about the film is what makes the final act so great is that it's not a conclusive end to Daniel Craig's saga, but it could be, and it definitely rounds up a combination of this film and the last three. So it could be the end of a saga, or it could have just been a really good final act, and that was it. We've got more Daniel Craig to come, but we'll go into more depth about who we'd like to see as Bond in our spoiler cast. So subject number 2 would be Jared Leto's Joker has appeared on the front cover of Empire in the latest issue. You've had a chance to take a look, Callum. What did you think?
I think it kind of gives us more of what we was expecting. I don't really think it's much of a new story as it's being made out to be, even though it kind of is a massive story. Because I kind of think from that first photo, the tone's always been set from there, and this photo doesn't really add that much, but it kind of reinforces what they're going for stylistically. But
so it supports it more than adds to it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but yet again, the words on the picture, but there's two very out of place words and like some very generic font that makes no sense on that poster.
Yeah, so we have Psycho and Killer. It's the same with, like you said, the tattoos. It's not something that I feel is necessary, but I do think it adds to it. I think it's almost chucking in our face now. This is going to be a Joker that we haven't seen. It's not going to be a Joker that we expected, which I think they need to get this out of the way early, because if people go in expecting something and they get something else entirely, then I think that's going to make a lot of people unhappy with a character like this. But I love this photo. I think he just looks great. He looks like the Joker, but not one that we've had before.
I also think that they're trying to go for a more unique approach, because ever since those trailers and the picture came out, it's kind of gone, it's kind of like a Heath Ledger kind of mix of all of them. But that photo really stands out, and no other Joker has really dressed like exactly like that.
He's wearing jogging pants or jogging bottoms. Like, who, we haven't had a Joker like that before. And I'm actually starting to get used to the fact that he's got tattoos. And at first I was like, people are making them too much of a bigger deal out of this, but I can understand where people are coming from, because it is very in your face, But I like it.
Are you not worried about how early this media coverage is building up? Because it's still half a year away and we're getting Empire front covers.
No, it's not like we're getting like a Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, for example, where we're getting overloaded with trailers, teasers, this, that, and the other. I mean, I think the problem is they've got two massive films coming out, Suicide Squad and Batman vs Superman. So I think every time someone sees a trailer, for example, of Batman vs Superman and then footage from Suicide Squad, they might put two and two together, but we do need to remember these are two separate films, but they do share a universe. I think if people feel oversaturated, that's the reason why. But I think they should get this out there early. Like I said, I think it gives people time to contemplate it, get used to it, and eventually start embracing it.
Obviously, like the biggest like comparative universe at the moment is Star Wars, and those two media campaigns have been so completely different. Star Wars has been very retracted, rather than the Batman and Superman universe for DC universe seems to be trying very hard in getting media coverage to a point where it seems to be a bit try hard. I just kind of hope that they kind of start withholding a bit more until like 2 months before.
I mean, I can kind of see what you mean, because we are a good few months away from the release. But I mean, let's not forget that we had a trailer for Star Wars a year before it came out. We had set images, interviews. Well, not interviews actually. That's something that they have been very, very close knit on. Whereas I believe in Empire, they do have an interview with Jared Leto. But I think you need to get a buzz going even this early, because like I said, they've got 2 major films coming out. They need people to know that the Joker is going to be in Suicide Squad, and they need to know that Batman's going to be in Batman vs Superman, as stupid as that sounds. But then they need to know that there are 2 massive products coming to the audience.
One of the cool things that about like Jared Leto's Joker has been coming out recently is that it's kind of becoming a myth, kind of about like Heath Ledger's, about how crazy he went behind the scenes. I mean, Will Smith was doing an interview with Zane Lowe on Beats Radio or Radio 1, whatever they're calling it, Apple's music station. and Will Smith was saying that he's never actually met Jared Leto. He's only been on character on set. And I kind of think, though, that kind of myth and talking about it in an unofficial terms is going to really help that media campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. There's a lot of talk about behind the scenes that Jared Leto wasn't exactly sticking around sharing a pint with the crew after takes and after days on set. He was very much in the zone. And I think that's good buzz for the movie. I think it's nice to know that someone's taking it seriously, because just look at how, I know it's a go-to topic piece, but just look at how hard Heath Ledger had to work at his character for people to accept him as the Joker, because it's such a beloved character that people aren't willing to give up what they know him to be to someone that they don't trust him with. It's the same as Batman. Nobody was buying Ben Affleck as Batman when he was first cast, and he's had to really, bring it to get people on board. But it creates conversation, and it's a nice conversation topic when we live in an age where everything's Star Wars at the moment. But I'm happy with it. I mean, it's added buzz to me. It's going to go away in a couple of months before we're really hit in the face with their advertising campaigns, but I'm excited.
On a side note, have you seen this crazy theory on Cinema Blend about how it all shares the same universe as Christopher Nolan's Batman?
I heard about that and I refuse to believe it, because
it's proper like Illuminati. It's like, if you look here, there's a tiny letter that if you take the last letter, it spells Robin, and it's really crazy. But it's a fascinating read, and if they had the balls to pull that off, that would be amazing. But I kind of doubt it. But it's such a big talking topic.
I tell you what I hate about all these theories. First of all, everyone's got a theory, right? And a theory can't be a theory unless you've seen the product, because otherwise it's just a guess, right? It's not a theory, it's a guess. In other words, you're making shit up, right? This isn't going to happen. In fact, I'll bet you 100 quid.
It's all part of the fun.
It's part of the fun. It does my head in. Okay, we've reached that part of the show where we take viewers' questions. Now, obviously, this is episode 1. So we've managed to put out a few questions from a few sources. We asked for questions. So question 1 has come from Grant Wilson, who asks, "What is your favourite horror movie?" Callum?
See, how are you defining? Are you including zombie movies in the horror genre?
Well, I think for the sake that it's Halloween coming up, I think if we broaden our search, as it were, which will tie into the end of the show. But yeah, we'll include that.
Well, my favourite zombie film, and horror film, is probably 28 Days Later. I mean, I always preach about that film, but that film is something so special. Because it kind of symbolises Danny Boyle's directing, independent filmmaking to a point, as in it was on a very small budget, and the way they filmed it, like digitally, was amazing. It's just one of those films that's going to stand the test of time, and it looks beautiful.
So, do you think it does stand the test of time? Because the reason I asked that is because, again, it's a film you liked a lot more than I did. I have a bit of an issue with that film in regards to it's appearing to be a film that's almost bigger than it is, and that's a compliment and also a dig at the same time. Because you look at that and you don't think B movie, you don't think small budget, you believe they closed off London for days when they had like 5 minutes in reality.
But isn't that fascinating about it though? And like closing the motorway and using a helicopter just to get an empty bit of the road.
It is, but if you're going to do that, then record the sound properly. Because the sound I have a massive issue with in that film, and I do hate the ending. But at the same time, it is a great movie, and it is a great movie to watch around this time of year. But in terms of what's your favourite horror movie, would you say that is your favourite?
Probably as a horror movie. I mean, I'm not too much of a big horror fan these days because horror's kind of taken a dive turn. And basically, the only way that horror movies you can enjoy these days is if you go to the cinema, because all what they are is jumpy films with loud stereos and stuff. Right. And to be fair, like experiencing horror, I mean, video games is where I experience my horror now. I mean, you got Outlast, you got VR, you got all these proper like immersive horror games, and for me, that's where the horror genre lies.
You see, because going off that, I don't watch horror films, okay? Not because I don't appreciate them, because there's a lot to be said. There's a reason why a lot of these films have cult followings, but I am a little bitch, and I hate going to a cinema and being scared, because this is how bad it is, okay? The one with Daniel Radcliffe, the...
Horns.
No, the one that was actually, semi-decent. Why am I forgetting the name? Lady in Black, was it? Thing. Woman in Black. Lady in Black. Yeah, Woman in Black. I genuinely didn't see the last shot of that film because I was looking away. Not because it was, jumpy or anything, but because it actually built tension, which was the only part of the film that I thought actually did that, right? That isn't the answer that I'm picking. That's not my favourite horror film of all time. Don't you worry. My favourite is The Exorcist, right? For one simple reason. Okay, it's simple. It's all pretty much set in a house, right? It's generally scary to the point where I had nightmares because I watched it way too young, right? And I love the ending. And I just think, as a film, it holds up. You can laugh at some points because it's that ridiculous, and then in the next scene, you're holding your mum's hand because you don't want to die. It's that kind of film. But I think it stands the test of time. And I think it's going to be up there. It's going to take something special to knock that off for me.
I've also got another one, Alien. I mean, that film's... I saw that young, and Alien is a masterpiece.
Alien's up there. I'm glad you brought it up, because visually it doesn't stand the test of time at all. It's so, what decade was that out?
80s?
80s, yeah, we'll say 80s. It's probably going to be 70s now, I've said that. But it's so 80s it hurts. Just everything. Because technology wasn't big back then.
Even talking about that, I mean, Alien Isolation came out last year on I think it was last year, and that experience transferred so much better over to video games. And I know it's really cliche, but horror really does belong on video games rather than film these days.
No, that's interesting, because this is actually a nice little gateway to our second question. Ooh. But just going off what you said, I think something that's great can spawn a franchise like Alien did. We haven't just got films that we don't have to talk about all of them, because some of them shouldn't have been made, right? Alien vs Predator. But when you've got games being made, and those games are still selling big, and they're hitting with the fans, because there's such a a mythology to it. I think that's how you've got a great universe. Really.
Well, definitely, because Star Wars Battlefront is coming out. I mean, in December. And they've done the same as Alien by basically scanning and taking all the sounds from the amazing created film, then transferring it over. So clearly these products can transfer over into other mediums and work if they're strong enough. Exactly. So that's why I think Alien's actually a good call on your part. Thank you. Well done, you. You win round one to you. The second question of the day comes from Alex Fisher, who asks, will they ever reboot The Matrix? Me? Okay. Well, I kind of think they will, but I don't think they could do a straight reboot. I mean, it would need to have a turn on it somehow, and I don't know exactly how they would do it. I mean, animated, but that wouldn't sell big. I just kind of think that it's going to be very hard to do without changing it and making it very different.
I don't know how to answer this question in regards to yes or no, so I'm going to say yes and no, because I think they will, but not. Bear with me, right? I think they'll reboot it, but call it a soft reboot, whereby it's a continuation, but it's not a direct follow-up. It's in the same universe, but it's almost retelling what we knew beforehand, but in a different way. I think that's what they're going to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they'll extend on it, expand on it, even. Right? I only had 2 beers at lunch. They will expand on it. They'll retell the story, but also expand on what we already know to the point where they won't involve any of the original cast. Perhaps some of the side characters. Neo's not going to be involved. They're not going to reboot it with Neo because everyone is always going to think of Keanu shouldn't act Reeves, right? When you think of Matrix, you think Keanu Reeves. It's as simple as that, and I think it is almost too soon to reboot it, and it's not too soon to expand on the universe.
It's just so unique. It's kind of like taking something that is that, but you just couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know how they could do it. I mean, like, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, making it into a VR kind of thing would be kind of cool, but I just don't think you could do a film reboot so close.
No, and I mean, the question is, will they? I think if the question was, should they, we'll both be set on no. Because even though the second and third films weren't the strongest, it does continue the story, and that's the story we got.
Would you know who owns the rights for it? Is it in the studio or is it in a person's?
That's the kind of question you should have asked me before the show, because I do not know.
Because, I mean, like, Back to the Future, I mean, like, the creators hold the rights, and they've said flat out, like, there'll be no reboots unless they're dead.
Right.
Which is quite a bold statement.
Challenge accepted.
But, like, creative, I'm kind of surprised there's been nothing since, if it is in the studio's hands.
I tell you why I'm leaning towards yes, they will. Because the studios owe the Wachowskis nothing anymore. They have fallen so hard since the first Matrix that I actually feel sorry for them. I mean, if you look at the first Matrix, we'll just call it Matrix, because it's called The Matrix, right? If you watch that film, and then watch Jupiter Ascending afterwards.
Please don't.
And then you watch that stupid little speed racer, whatever the hell it's called. And then you watch... I'm not going to go in on a rant. But they don't owe the Wachowskis anything, which is sad. But they don't need to... For example, when they were talking about Man of Steel... There would have been a conversation with Nolan somewhere, just out of respect for Nolan. There's a reason he was the executive producer on that film. They've got respect for him. They trust his opinion. I guarantee you, if they were making a Matrix reboot or a continuation, they wouldn't call up the Wachowskis straight away and say, "What do you think, mate?" They wouldn't be doing that. They've lost all credibility, which is sad. The final question of the day comes from me. My question is, who would you like to see play Bond once Daniel Craig is finished? I will start this one off because I know you have a lot to say. I have one simple choice that not many people agree with. I'd love to see him play Bond. Henry Cavill. Okay, he would be...
Have you seen The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
He plays an American, doesn't count, right? Now, he's a completely different type of British to Daniel Craig, right? I think he can pull off the suave a lot better, right? He's built for it already, right? He's already carrying a universe on his shoulders with Superman, right? I think he can carry a franchise. I think, and he's been up for so many things, right? He was second choice to play Bond before. He was second choice to play Superman about a decade ago. Studios have been looking at him, and he's hot.
He's always second choice there.
He's until now, right? I think he'll be a perfect choice. But I'm going to let you. Oh, drop my mouse. How professional. But I'll let you come on to this one because I know you told me pre-show that you have a lot to say. So go on.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to run through who shouldn't be Bond, which is quite a lot of people. So first of all, Damian Lewis shouldn't be Bond. Because Damian Lewis is always Damian Lewis. if that makes sense.
But he's good. Don't get me wrong. He can act, right? I don't think he can carry a franchise.
But I just think, like, whenever he's on screen, it's Damian Lewis playing someone. It's not Bond. Do you kind of get what I mean? You can't really get past that barrier. Secondly, is Tom Hardy. I don't think he could pull off a suave as much as you would need for Bond.
No.
But so I've got some choices. I'll run to you.
How many you
got? 4.
Right, go from 4 to 1. Go from 4. I want you to rank them for me.
Well, no, I can't rank them.
Okay.
My first one is Matthew Lewis, aka Neville Longbottom from Harry Potter.
Oh, we need to talk. Right, okay.
I mean, his acting hasn't been that in the theatres, let's say, so much in the recent years, but I kind of think that from the stuff he's done, he looks like he could be Bond, and I think he'd be a great outsider choice because you don't really know him that much as he is now. What would you say to that, or would you completely?
You know what? When you were talking, I did kind of drift off because I got lost in thought at the thought of him coming into it. I was going to say in 10 years, but it would be a nice take to see a young Bond because that's not something that we've really, gone through before. Especially with where we're at now with the Bond franchise, it'd be interesting for them to go in a completely different direction. But he needs some screen time on the big screen. He needs to be involved again because I know he's done some work with the BBC and he's done well. He's got the chops, but he just I don't know if he's got the chops for the big screen, especially to carry that. But he is built for it. He's no longer Neville Longbottom. He's ripped, isn't he?
Well, the main reason that I'm kind of going for that thing is that we have the cheesy Bond with Pierce Brosnan, we have the serious one with Daniel Craig, and I kind of think you need a different direction by going someone younger. So here's a few others. Andrew Garfield, what do you think about him? Because he's British, and I think he could pull it off quite well. But then again, I haven't really seen him play a hard kind of guy, which I think would be his downfall.
I can't see him holding a gun and fighting off 10 guys and making it look cool. I think the thing is, he's definitely the strongest actor out of the three that you've mentioned so far. He could carry the film if he's got a good stunt double. I can't see him being intimidating, which is what really Bond needs to be.
Well, the two others, which are the outsiders, I'll round that with a very safe bet. So Kit Harington, I thought he would have been good until I saw him in Spooks, and I think Spooks has completely ruined his chances of ever being Bond, because he's a great actor, but that film was basically trying to be Bond, and it did not work. So I kind of think the film has basically ruined his chances, but I think he would have a chance.
Right. Okay.
And my other one is John Boyega.
John Boyega.
What do you think about that? I think it could be good.
I
didn't see him in Star Wars first.
I think you should come back to me after Star Wars, which totally isn't here soon enough, right? I think you come back to me with that after Star Wars because again, it just comes back to that. I know he was in Attack the Block, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Right. Great. Not Bond. Okay. Kit Harington is an interesting choice, but all I would see, I think, at the moment, is Kit Harington.
Have you seen Spooks the Greater Good, his Bond ripoff?
No, I've heard mixed things.
Yeah, it's very mixed.
Which is a police thing, a polite way to put. I don't know where I got policing from. It's a polite way of putting it. But that's. I'm not sure. So far, I know you've got one more you're going to drop me, right?
This is a safe choice. But
yeah. Is it Idris Elba?
No, it's not.
Oh, interesting. So far, read off what you got.
So we've got Matthew Lewis,
right?
Andrew Garfield, Kit Harington, and John Boyega.
I think Garfield actually, only because acting alone.
Start turning. Go on.
On acting alone, out of those, I think he's got the chops to do it.
And the final safe one is Michael Fassbender. I just think he's a strong actor. He sells films and he can morph into characters, kind of like the Steve Jobs trailers. And that film looks amazing. I can't wait for that to open. He can morph into different things, and it's not Michael Fassbender on screen. It's whoever he's playing on screen.
That's actually interesting you should say that, because I would hate Michael Fassbender to be Bond.
Wow.
Because it's where do I? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be comfortable. For the same reason that I wouldn't be comfortable with Tom Hardy being on. I almost feel like, and bear with me, please don't send me hate mail. Right? I almost feel like he's too big for Bond now. Okay, you need someone to take Bond and become the face of this franchise.
Is he though? I mean, he's just on a Steve Jobs movie, which is basically an indie film.
Yeah, playing Steve Jobs, who everyone knows.
I just don't see, like, Michael Fassbender is not the guy you see on movie posters and go, I want to see that film, which is why I think he'd be good as Bond, because he could,
I think he is. I think he is. I think he's at that level now. But then again, well, no, I don't think I'd like that. Your safe choice ended up upsetting me.
Well, the other choice was Tom Hiddleston, but I don't think he could be that big to pull off Bond, as in like physical presence.
I think I just disagreed with everything you said from your list, because Tom Hiddleston, I can see embracing that. Right, he's got the suave, he's got the cheeky chat. Wait, you could see him picking up the ladies. Right, then again, I don't think any of those guys that you mentioned are going to struggle with that. Right, they're all chiseled gentlemen. But I could see if the problem you have is that he doesn't have the build for Bond, you can change that. I mean, look at Hugh Jackman with Wolverine. Right, you can become bigger.
But has he ever bulked up before though? That's the thing I'm worried about.
I don't think he has.
And in a boring term, would Marvel let him bulk up if he's going to be Thor in 2 years?
Oh, that's the point. Yeah, that's always going to be an issue, isn't it? But, right. Okay.
Have you got any outsider choices that I haven't brought up?
I know it's popular to be a fan of Idris Elba in this conversation, which we haven't mentioned yet. I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's going to be involved, which is sad. But again, I can't see him being Bond, only because he's such a great Luther. Okay, he pulls it off so well. But what I've seen, I don't really see him in that conversation. He deserves it. He's a great actor. He deserves to be, more than just a wasted character in Thor. Right? He needs to be involved heavily in a franchise because he's just that good. But at the same time, Bond, I don't think he can carry it.
Yeah, I agree.
So that conversation solved absolutely nothing. But you guys let us know. Leave a comment who you think should be our next Bond, or if you think Daniel Craig should stay on for one more, because I believe he's got one more in him. I think we're gonna see him for one more, and I wouldn't mind that because I do like Daniel Craig as Bond.
I really don't think so, and I think the only reason why studios aren't saying that yet is because the numbers would go down. I mean,
and they're looking at good numbers at the moment.
No, but like you don't want to say this is his last film without making that a big thing about the film originally, which it wasn't. And I kind of think that Spectre ended perfectly in a kind of way that he goes away and then they can bring someone else in and the universe will still stay strong. I kind of think you'd be pushing it if you had one more, but that's another whole discussion we can have in future.
We'll go into more detail on this in our spoiler cast, but I would like to see him stay. In fact, I just going off that for 30 seconds, because we have talked about this for a little bit too long, right? That for that argument you just gave, I think it's why we're going to see him come back, because the audience would go out in bigger numbers if they think this is it, this is the end of this saga with Daniel Craig. If they know this is his last Bond, people are going to go out and want to see how it ends.
Bearing in mind how much he's outspoken the film in the past 2 weeks, though, I think it seems like you're forcing Daniel Craig to be Bond, and I think the audience kind of knows that. I mean, there's been about 3 disastrous interviews in the last 2 weeks of this film.
It's context, though, isn't it? He said he would rather take 2 years off, but bearing in mind how quickly this did come out after Skyfall.
I'm surprised Bond hasn't come into every 2-year franchise, frequently, yeah. And I kind of think that with the next person that's going to be Bond, the studios will make a point of making it become every 2 years in November.
So you think it's going to be like one of these Marvel deals where you're contracted to a bigger workload, as it were?
Well, I kind of think that they want it to be, but Daniel Craig and Sam Mendes don't want it to be that. But I think the overall arching studio is. But the most interesting thing is that the rights, I think, are being sold for after Bond 25. So that's going to be the interesting thing to see where it actually goes. But again, that's another whole giant discussion we can have another day.
We will move on to our next segment of the show, which is our box office breakdown. So this week we have number one at the box office, not really surprising, is Hotel Transylvania 2, pulling in £2.275 million. The Martian at close to 1.8. Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension, which is what Paranormal Activity 76, coming in at 1.5 million. Suffragette coming in at 1.3 million. The Last Witch Hunter being number 5 at only 1.24 million. Pan has panned. That's a poor joke that I've taken from about six.
I wish someone's made that pun before.
Yeah, I know, right? So rich. Coming in at 1.2 million. Making a total of only 4.5 in the UK. Sicario is at just over 500,000, bringing its total to 4.3. Number 8 is Crimson Peak at 500,000. Legend pulling in 286,000 this week, and The Lobster is £241,000. So, Callum, you have the list. What stands out to you?
This year, people seem to be rewarding good films, and that's so good to see. I mean, you've got Pan at number 6, you've got The Last Witch Hunter at number 5, which weren't received that well. But then you've got, I mean, you've got The Martian still at number 2, and that film has been out for like over a month now. So clearly they're rewarding good films to the audience.
The Martian has made almost 20.5 million in the UK alone.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, like it was half-term opening weekend in the UK. And the big blockbuster kids film came in at 6th. I mean, like, the live action film was completely bombed, which people were hoping to see, and they've gone for Hotel Transylvania 2. And that's just kind of nice to see that a critically more successful film is being rewarded rather than a giant marketing budget. Legend has been there for ages. I thought it was an alright film. What do you think of it?
Well, I think the fact that it's made 18 million... and it's still in the top 10, I think just talks about Tom Hardy's pulling power, because word of mouth is it's an okay film with a great performance, and if people know Tom Hardy's in a film, no matter what the film's, if it's an okay film, for it to make 18 million, considering it wasn't even a massive film, I mean, it's done wonders. Sorry.
I mean, what's interesting about number 5, The Last Witch Hunter, is Vin Diesel hasn't really had the pulling power of what Vin Diesel should be having. Like, bearing in mind it's his pet project, he's been doing loads of press junkets, and he's kind of been going, this is my film, I'm Vin Diesel. And for that to come in at number 5 seems to be very disappointing from, like, 400 screens nearly.
Yeah, I think this shows one thing, and that the pulling power behind, the attraction behind the Fast and Furious franchise isn't Vin Diesel. It's the franchise, which speaks a lot for the films, not so much for him. Because if you look at, I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before with Riddick, that did not do great. Now this hasn't done great. Really, it's his go-to paycheck these days is going to be the Fast and Furious franchise. I think that's what that says. But I want to talk a little bit about number 7, which we wouldn't normally do in a top 10 list. But number 7, Sicario. It's a smaller project compared to a lot of those. I mean, it doesn't have the big name like Crimson Peak, for example. It has made more than Crimson Peak this week. But I love that film. Man, that film is incredible. And for that to almost be making 5 million is... I'm happy for it.
It's amazing, and talking about Sicario and everything else. What's nice about this is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of the top 10 are all original properties or original versions of properties. I mean, the land of sequels seems to be dying out. I mean, The Martian, which was completely original onto film, is doing so well. I mean, it's in the top 3 every single week on week.
And for people who are about to complain, say it was based on the book wasn't actually released until after the film. So, no, or at least, in terms of the production had started,
Oh
and they
yeah,
picked
yeah.
up the rights
The
before
rights
it's distributed. So just going off what you said, that's true. And yeah, I mean, it just goes to what you said. I mean, I think this is great news for cinema goers because they're rewarding original films, they're rewarding great films, and I think it says a lot about the marketing as well, because people are picking up on these trailers. People are seeing trailers a lot more than they ever have done, and I think if it's a bad trailer, there's only so much you can do with a bad film.
Another thing is for Lobster. I mean, I really want to go and see it, but it's not opened in many places. It's number 10, but it's in less than a quarter of the screens as every other film on that list.
It's in 84 screens.
It's what I mean, and all the others are in like 300, well, nearly 300 plus. So
Yeah.
clearly, that's a quality film that's being kind of like rewarded. But I really hope it has a wide release. I kind of think it won't because of its subject matter, but yeah,
Right.
I think it deserves one, but by the revenue to screen that it's producing.
I don't think we're surprised that Paranormal Activity is in the top five. I mean,
Next weekend it might rise.
it probably will do. It's Halloween weekend, but I mean, number six. I think it's number six in the series, and it's got the audience. It's pulling people in. I mean, it's got a gimmick that it's the first one in 3D, so that's going to help it make money. But there's not particularly one I'm going to rush out and be saying.
Well, it's kind of stolen the market for this Halloween. I mean, that's the only Halloweenish film out of the top 10.
Which is crazy to think, considering we are now only a few days away from Halloween. But it's also nice not to be swamped with just poor films with teenagers who are fresh out of high school who can't act and are just there to, put on a bikini.
But still, it seems like an open market for them to draw in that whole Halloween market. I mean, if you're like a group of teenagers and you go, let's go and see a scary film at the cinema, you've literally only got one choice at the moment, which seems to be... it's just kind of crazy to think that these studios haven't even like rushed out a re-release for Halloween.
Yeah. I don't really know what to say about that because it is a bit strange. No doubt we're going to see a few pop up for, just a short spurt. Some films that we haven't talked about because we haven't seen any advertising, and we're going to get swamped with that in the next few days. No doubt that's going to be the case. But it's definitely the biggest Halloween movie that's coming out this side of the weekend. So, normally we would talk about the films that are coming out this weekend, as what we normally do with this segment of the show. But as we just said, nothing's coming out, which is very strange. So instead, we're going to leave you with a suggestion of what to watch over the Halloween weekend. Callum, I will go to you first.
Well, I'm going to be awkward. I've got two. I've got a film and a video game. So
interesting.
The first film is Omega Man. It's the original I Am Legend. It's kind of cheesy horror kind of like horror like isolation kind of film, and it's really on not a big budget, but it's so good. I mean, there's like empty streets with people still walking down them. It's that kind of film. It's a classic, and it's worth seeing. And the game which you should go out and play is Outlast. It's an indie horror game. It was free on PlayStation Plus before.
Right.
So go and play that if you're into your horror, because it really is a cinematic experience on as a video game.
Interesting choices. I definitely won't pick up the game simply because, like I said, I am a little bitch and I can't play games and not get scared. But I'm sure some people would take your advice, just not me. My one is probably not going to be everyone's pick, but the original Scream. It's got horror elements. It is more of a thriller. In fact, it's more of a whodunit mystery. But it's a film that holds up. The films do get worse as you go along. But if you enjoy it, there's a nice little franchise you can get yourself into. I mean, there are, I believe, 4 films. And a Netflix original series which has just gone on. So if you're into that kind of thing, there's a whole load of material that you can get your teeth into over this weekend if you have no plans like me. So that will conclude our first film podcast, bearing in mind that we do have another podcast that we run on a not so regular basis. So if you're interested in other things such as gaming, music and films. We chuck everything together into one big podcast. This is our film podcast, episode 1. So anything that you think we can do to improve, leave a comment in the sections. And like we said, we take your questions and we'll take your topics, because there are many topics that come out every week. So we will take your comments to heart, and we will talk about the topics you would like us to. But for now, that will conclude. Callum, where can people find you?
At Moorin on Twitter, and then obviously on the Angry Microwave. Just search out the Angry Microwave on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're all on there. There's some great interviews up with Vern Troyer, adult actor, and Kerry Collins, all from Convenience. It's a great independent film, so go and check those out on our YouTube channel.
And I am Brad. You can find me on Twitter at Bradley_J_Evans, just because it's easy. And this has been episode 1. Our production values will go up. I won't always be in Harry Potter's bedroom under the stairs. And until next time, see you later.